Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Veolia's Deep Dive event, which title is Waste to Value, Focus on Innovation and Hazardous Waste. My name is Frédérique Bedos. I'm a journalist, and I have the privilege to be a host for this live event. Thank you all for attending, you in the room and you who are following us online. This event will be held entirely in English, so for the people here in the room, translation headsets are available. Channel 1 is for French, Channel 2 is for English, and Channel 3 for Spanish. And for you who are online, you can choose to follow this presentation in the language of your choice. As you can see, this event takes place in a very special facility. We are in the north of France, at Courrières, at the very heart of what Veolia does best in terms of technology, chemistry, and innovation. Actually, this is one of Europe's largest hazardous waste treatment facilities. But of course, this type of infrastructures imposes very strict security measures. So, ladies and gentlemen, for your safety, I invite you to locate the emergency exits situated at the back of the room, on the right and on the left. In the event of an evacuation, follow the safety team's instructions. They will guide you to the assembly point located right behind this tent on the road you took this morning. Now that we are clear on the security, let me give you a few last details. From now on, you can download the slide deck, which is already available on the platform. At the end of the different presentations, we will dedicate 30 minutes to answer your questions. For the audience here, you will just have to raise your hand and we will come to you with a microphone. And for those online, you will just have to type your question in the chat and send it to us. Once again, feel free to ask your questions in French, English, or Spanish. We are together for roughly 1 hour and a half, and here is the program. Estelle Brachlianoff, CEO of Veolia, will present a global overview about Veolia's waste and pollution treatment worldwide. Then Emmanuel Menning, Deputy CEO of Finance and Purchasing of the group, will share with us the business models related to this market and the key figures. And we will continue with a roundtable gathering 4 Veolia executives for a special focus on 4 different regions. And finally, Estelle Brachlianoff will give us a few words of conclusion. I think we are all eager to begin, and in order for all of us to have the global context in mind, let's watch a video. Time to dive deeply into the matter. Let's welcome on stage the CEO of Veolia, Estelle Brachlianoff.
everyone, and thank you for joining us today, whether you're with us here in Courrières or connecting via live stream from around the world. What you see around you here at the Courrières site tells a remarkable story of transformation, because where years and decades ago stood around here coal mines, now you can see we're in an ecosystem and a real green technology hub, including this plant, which is treating the most difficult pollution and regenerating key resources as well. This is telling about the transformation the waste industry has come through. And after diving into energy and water, today we are talking about waste and how this will contribute to Green Up and how we are confident it will deliver. And when I say waste, I'm guessing some of you might see trucks in the streets and bins. You will see after today, you will think about technology and innovation. Waste management, in fact, has come a long way. What started as a simple yet essential services, waste collection and disposal, has become one of the industry's most pressing challenges, that of generating energy, recycling materials, and treating pollution. And why is that so? Because megatrends are supporting this move and this transformation. Of course, I will start with legislation, which is key to boost recycling, which is saving CO2, or to protect, of course, ecosystems. But progressively, in addition, there are other trends which come to be as important, starting with health and pollutant removal, to protect your health and that of your kids. The Lancet magazine estimates that 9 million people die each year from air, water, and soil pollution in the world. That's absolutely gigantic, as you can imagine, and a big health problem throughout the planet. Another big trend will be the reshoring of strategic industries, as microelectronic or pharma, and all of them, they are in high demand for our services. I won't forget security of the supply chains. In today's quite uncertain times, securing the supply chain for industry is absolutely key. And when we produce local energy from waste or materials from waste, from recycling it, that's exactly what we do to ensure and secure supply chain. In a way, waste isn't waste anymore. It's an untapped local mine. In this transformation landscape, Veolia stands apart. In size, of course, as you can see on this slide, since we are, for instance, #1 in hazardous waste, which is a key booster, as you know, in our Green Up program, as well as in Europe for solid waste, just to mention a few figures. But our expertise runs much deeper. It's about mastering the most complex materials and leading the circular economy, thus paving the way for the future of the industry. Our leadership translates into powerful numbers, with 15.7 billion revenue from waste activities, with solid margin and return. In terms of firing power, I could mention as well our 32 plastic recycling plants in the world, or 40 high-temperature incinerators, such as the one we'll visit in a minute. Actually, years ago, we were used to talk about the tons, or the number of tons we processed, the trucks, or the number of trucks, the fleet size. And this would be, in that case, 55 million tons of municipal we process each year, which is, for those who wonder, it sounds big, but if you want to visualize it, that's the equivalent of the annual waste of Greater London, Paris, and New York combined. So that's big. But that only tells half of the story, because now we speak more in terawatt-hour of energy produced. We speak more of tons of material we recycle, or pollutant we remove. So the shift in the indicators are very much telling the story of transformation. And again, for those who are hesitant to visualize what 9 million tons of pollutant represent, that we remove every single year, that's 10 times as much as a catastrophe which happened 15 years ago in the Gulf of Mexico, the BP Deepwater Horizon spillage, if you remember it. That's what we treat, but every single year. And we won't stop here, as we try to create more loops, more circular loops, and innovate to do so, such as the battery recycling facility we just opened. Innovation enables us to show the way of the future of this industry. And we hold high ambition in our waste activity, as we are uniquely positioned in this transformation. By 2030, the global waste management market is set to grow by 3% per year and reach 1,300 billion euro. But not all segments with this industry are equal. While our solid waste business continues its steady growth, hazardous waste is set on a swifter pace, and we ambition to reach mid to high single-digit growth, thus a booster in GreenUp. This means growing twice faster than the market. And of course, we're not only focusing on top-line growth. EBITDA will grow faster, leading to margin increase and even higher ROCE growth of 50% by 2027 to around 9% for hazardous waste. Solid waste, on the other side, although the two are combined, isn't just a heritage for Veolia, it's our stronghold, delivering good results and really a foundation for us. And we keep this foundation strong thanks to operational excellence, to new offers in recycling, to good customer service and NPS as well, or local energy production. And we constantly develop new technologies and expertise in this industry as well. And the combination of this stronghold and our booster is what enables us to deliver growth and resilience. So allow me now to explain why we are confident about our positioning and differentiation in the waste market and what sets us apart. Our winning formula combines, for me, the best of both worlds. A global reach together with deep local roots. We've built a global footprint enabling us to deploy innovation and technologies at scale. But we are as well deeply rooted in local communities worldwide, ensuring our solutions are adapted to specific local demand. Our combination of waste, water, and energy, which allows us as well to offer unique offers to our customers in combining the three, as opposed to running them in silos. We have built and are still building a great irreplaceable network, an infrastructure, if you want, of waste treatment assets, which we fully own. And we are developing great technologies and expertise, patents, and keep on innovating constantly. Let me give you now a little bit more color about some of the components I just highlighted, and starting with a geographical footprint, which is very global in the waste management activity, as the rest of the group, with, in this case, 34% outside Europe. This worldwide footprint allows us to invest in innovation, to anticipate, and to copy and adapt from one corner of the globe to another. As an example, we managed to recycle plastic up to the highest level of quality, which is called food grade, in Europe. It took us a while to get there. And then we were ready to export this technology and know-how to Asia. Asia, on the opposite side, was leading the way in terms of industrial solutions, when America, for instance, has pioneered emerging pollutants. This footprint, of course, helps de-risking our result from macro, as we are not exposed to any specific market, as well as we are able to seize opportunities when they arise. On the other hand, our top 3 position in each of the key local markets we operate gives us the ability to have pricing power, as we've demonstrated in the last 3 years with great success as inflation came back. No other competitor can show you a map like that one. This power to combine expertise is what makes Veolia unique, combining our various expertise in wastewater and energy as well. And that's the second point I wanted to explore a bit further. This combination of activities corresponds to 25% of our global turnover in Veolia, and growing. Let me show you examples with relation to waste, of course, because we're here to talk about waste today. And each of the two examples I'm going to mention are counting in billions of revenue, so they are at scale. I will start with bioenergy. We produce 9 terawatt-hours of energy from residual waste each year, corresponding to 2.5 billion euro revenue. This is massive. This is enough to power 1.5 million European homes. And there is an untapped potential to do more with, we estimate, 150 gigawatt hour, gigawatts, not hour, that we think we can generate in Europe, or can be generated in Europe. I would like to mention as well our new offer to treat pollutants, what we call new pollutants, although they've been here for a while, such as PFAS. In just 2 years, we've created a 205 million euro treatment business from scratch. By 2030, this will hit 1 billion euro. And why? Because we have demonstrated our ability not only to put them on the side, but to remove them. And I would call that destruction, for no better word. So it's 99.9999% efficiency that we have demonstrated. And this is thanks to our double expertise in water and hazardous waste, and in particular, water tech. Again, none of our competitors has this. Last but not least, we can rely on a good track record of delivering consistent growth and resilience of our result in the waste management activity, as demonstrated in the last 6 years on this slide. Waste management has contributed to our net result doubling in the period. And this is not by chance, but thanks to a few strategic choices. Our balanced portfolio of customers and regions, which makes us uniquely resilient. When one sector or region slows, another one drives growth. Our leadership as well in innovative offers and expertise, and our ability to combine businesses, they are very key to ensure this performance. Added to which, agility and performance management. You know, delivery is and always be paramount for Veolia. And that was quite put to the test recently, if I just pick 2 examples. One, you know, when inflation came back in many countries 3 years ago, roughly, we have launched a dedicated pricing strategy, which has worked. Another example is COVID, when we've developed a specific extra efficiency measures, which have been allowing us to deliver the same level of result than pre-COVID in less than 6 months, although the revenue hadn't fully come back yet. So it's not just about managing risk, it's about capturing opportunities in all economical cycles. Altogether, the performance of our waste activities has been strong, including a 4.5% growth per year in the dry waste business or solid waste business in the last 6 years, a little bit above inflation, or 8% in the hazardous waste activity, and in both cases associated with good, strong EBITDA increase. So, allow me now to expand a bit on the highly specialized hazardous waste, which is about technology and innovation, and a few new announcements for this morning. So, what are we talking about here? Sometimes it's even called toxic waste, which I think says it all. We are talking about arsenic, PCB, PFAS, nuclear waste, mercury, or even chemical weapons we destroyed from Syria 10 years ago. All types of materials you don't want in the air or in the river near where you live. A lot of what the industry is actually producing. And no industry can operate without guaranteeing hazardous waste management. From semiconductor fabs to battery gigafactories, from pharma to chemical plants, it's all the same. And our answer is to offer them peace of mind and security, as well as compliance. Enabling, therefore, to reconcile industrialization or re-industrialization together with the health of local communities and ecosystems. And what makes that possible is the 300+ network of treatment assets we have with Veolia, of various types, which each type of treatment dedicated for each specific chemical family. Therefore, very unique and highly specialized. And this is where I would encourage you to remember your chemical classes from high school. When there is an atom of carbon, it may burn, very high temperature. This is where we have a high temperature unit, like the one we see here. But when you don't have an atom of carbon, it won't burn, whatever the temperature. And then you move to physicochemical treatments of some sort, for instance. This is to treat, for instance, fly ash. Fly ash, which is a concentrated pollutant removed from air pollution control at stacks. And at times, we even try to regenerate and to recycle as long as it's not harmful for health. This is what we do with solvents. We turn, therefore, a problem into a resource each time we can. All this with precise protocol and sampling to ensure no mixing of two components which wouldn't get well together, as ammonia and bleach. You don't want those two mixed together, do you? So we have plenty of laboratories across the globe. They employ 15% of our workforce. We're talking here typically about chemical engineers, and they are key to ensure safety, security, and compliance. And they are, helped with AI, with all the data we've collected all those years, helping them to get quicker to the best mix, the best recipe possible. We even call it internally the Master Chief. Master Chef, more so than Master Chief, isn't it, Bob? You correct me each time. And you're right. So all those assets are 100% fully owned, ensuring full value on the entire value chain and our ability to innovate quickly and test things and new ideas. Because it takes years and research to imagine and create sophisticated chemical compounds, but it takes the same type of expertise to design how safely to destroy them. And it's constantly evolving, as science does. And new challenges emerge, such as what we call new pollutants, for instance. And here again, Veolia is leading the way with patented technology, and we are already holding more patents than all our competitors combined, and regularly depositing new ones. This is happening thanks to our finest chemists in our 51 laboratories worldwide. And today, I'm really proud to announce our latest breakthrough, PFAS Drop Fast. This is quite technical, but in a nutshell, this is to treat one of the latest of those challenges, which is PFAS, which sometimes is called forever chemicals. A new technology which enables chemical reaction during thermal treatment to ensure 99.9999% complete PFAS extraction in incineration unit, starting above 900 degrees. This is very, very unique and quite an important one. And just one example of our portfolio of patented technology, and I'm super proud to show you this slide because every single of those 5 offers is unique to Veolia. GeoMelt technology is not only treating contaminated soil, it's mastering vitrification at the highest level, a level that can handle radioactive waste, for instance, and ensures it stays neutralized for 10,000 years at least. So you can imagine how mastering this technology it means. And we've just opened a first unit in Texas. PFAS again, with our activated carbon regeneration, which can be a game changer given the expanding demand for activated carbon altogether. Spent solvent regeneration, up to pharmaceutical-grade purity across all our 73 specialized plants. And we target to regenerate 300,000 tons per year, which is the equivalent of the entire consumption of the European pharma industry. Last but not least, our strategic metal separation process via hydrometallurgy, which can produce technical-grade hydroxide and carbonates, meeting the EU Critical Raw Materials Act requirements, and starting basically from the black mass of used batteries, I'm talking here about cell phone batteries, electric car batteries, electric bicycle, if you want. So you take the black mass, and then you extract nickel, cobalt, lithium, or copper. And you know those are critical minerals for energy transition, as well as strategic autonomy. You don't want to be dependent on another country allowing to import or export this type of material. Those are not just solutions, but proprietary technologies. And as ever, we keep on anticipating and finding the new one to break the new frontiers which happen. Another look and another map. And when I look at this map, let me explain to you what I see. Every single of those points was built over the years, and this map is a product of years and years of effort. Every single dot on this map, which are the treatment assets we own across the globe, is custom built and represent, at times, years of permitting and planning, a few years of construction, a few years of ramping up. We're talking about high-temperature incineration unit. We have 48, as well as Class A landfill or physical-chemical treatment. This map is like a unique infrastructure and a very, very difficult one to replicate. And we're not just waiting for future growth. We are building the future, as you can see from the 5 red dots on this map, which follow our customer demand. And we are constructing new facilities which will start opening from 25. 100% Veolia owned. And again, nobody in the world can show you a map like this, neither in terms of breadth of technology, size, or geographical footprint. And our leadership in hazardous waste stems from decades of expertise and transforming difficulties and challenges our customers face into opportunities. In fact, we've gone from pioneering this industry to be now its undisputed world leader with high ambition for the future. And it all began in the 70s. And you might wonder, how came this idea to treat hazardous waste in a specific set of units? It came from actually a spin-off of the French water business, with the critical observation that some rivers were becoming almost unpotable due to industrial pollution. And the realizing that tackling waste at the source rather than at the door of drinking water plants was much more efficient. So it's kind of an internal spin-off, if you want, and it created and transformed the whole industry. And look at our journey. We've tripled our revenue in the past decade alone, a dynamic no other company has enjoyed. And today, I'm very proud to announce our next chapter. By 2027, through GreenUp, we will be treating 9 million tons of pollutant annually. And by 2030, we will have grown our business by another plus 50%. This will come, of course, from organic growth, from following the sustained important demand we have from our customer, as well as new offers such as PFAS removal, including the new technology I've just announced this morning. But it's also the result of our investments, which we have prioritized, as you know, in GreenUp. We are building 5 new plants, the 5 dots on the precedent map, which will add 285,000 tons of treatment capacity by 2027 and 430,000 tons when they are fully ramped up. You remember, our existing plants are full in Europe and in the USA. At the same time, we are acquiring 5 new complementary facilities, adding 100,000 tons to this number via tuck-in acquisition we just signed in particular 3 in the US alone. So in a nutshell, the world needs advanced hazardous waste management more than ever, and through GreenUp, we are ready to deliver, and we are starting to deliver. Why such confidence? The demands for our services here, supported by legislation, as well as other powerful trends, such as protecting health, or just simply allowing industries to grow. In fact, for many of our customers, we're not talking about nice to have or an ESG agenda. We're talking about a must-have, a license to operate. Our unique positioning and footprint has built brick after brick, and now offers strengths by design, not by chance. Our Combination strategy sets us apart when we bring together waste, water, and energy. And we are keeping innovating and building the bridge for our future growth by launching innovative breakthrough and adding treatment capacity, as just announced today. This is why we are confident about our Green Up targets. I'm confident in top line, of course, but accretion as well, with plus 50% ROCE to 9% by 27, and extra value to come after this date when we fully ramp up all our facilities. And Emmanuel will elaborate about this in a minute. But numbers tell only part of the story. This growth is much about how many pollutants we remove, how many ecosystems and communities we protect. Emmanuel, the floor is yours.
Maybe before Emmanuel, maybe we can watch a film. Yes, it's a film about history of waste. Let's watch this.
Late 19th century, cities face an unprecedented health crisis with unsanitary streets and no waste management, whether solid or liquid, such as wastewater. Epidemics multiply. To address this, a sanitary revolution takes place. Sewers are built, first trash collections are organized. This marks the birth of Veolia. Early 20th century. With industrialization, everything changes. Waste is no longer the same. It becomes chemical, metallic, mineral. Cities grow, and with them, waste production. Veolia develops the first incinerators and organizes the sorting of solid and liquid waste. 1950 to 2000, a new challenge emerges. Waste becomes more complex. Solvents, hydrocarbons, pharmaceutical residues, these chemicals and heavy metals are a threat to the environment and to the water resource. Hazardous waste treatment emerges to protect water from contamination and thereby safeguard public health through access to safe drinking water. Hazardous waste treatments are developed, along with incinerators and sophisticated sealing systems. Veolia's expertise in liquid waste becomes the catalyst for hazardous waste treatment. 2000 to 2020, climate change and environmental awareness turn waste into a resource. A revolution is underway, and Veolia takes up the technological challenge by deploying large-scale automated and ultra-modern recycling centers and developing technologies to treat increasingly dangerous and toxic waste under strict environmental standards. Today, new challenges await us: PFAS, microplastics, and electric vehicle batteries. Faced with these public health and industrial development challenges, Veolia develops new solutions and integrates AI, advanced filtration, and recycling technologies. In 150 years, waste management has evolved from a rudimentary to a high-tech industry. This transformation has turned treatment centers into strategic factories at the cutting edge of technology. Essential expertise is needed to face increasingly complex and dangerous pollution. The challenge remains unchanged: developing a sustainable industry and protecting the health and quality of life of populations.
Thanks to Estelle Brachlianoff. We have just had a global picture and highly strategic messages on Veolia's unique positioning in waste and hazardous waste. And now, for more details on figures and business models on these activities, let's welcome on stage the Deputy CEO Finance and Purchasing of the group, Emmanuel Menning.
Thank you, Estelle, and good morning, everyone. I will now enter into more detail on our business models. As Estelle has just recalled, waste revenue reached 35% of the groups in 2024, and this 15.7 billion euro split for 73% in solid waste, key stronghold businesses, and 27%, a large quarter, in hazardous waste, our booster. Solid waste activities are local, systematically adapted to the reality of the geographies, with 4 main countries representing 70% of the total. We are in the top 3. In each country, which main are France, with 3.3 billion revenue, UK 2.2 billion, Germany and Australia with 1.7 billion. We have a well-balanced customer portfolio across countries with around 50% municipal with long-term contracts, including price indexation, 20% commercial and retail, 15% tertiary, for instance, with hospitals and schools, and around 15% industrial with all types of industries. In a nutshell, solid waste is a profitable business with a strong, predictable free cash flow and high ROCE above group average and group WACC. Now let's dive in the main characteristic of our business models in solid waste. In solid waste, we are working across the whole value chain with 4 business models which are closely interacting with each other, and notably collection, fueling treatment assets, from collection to sorting, recycling, incineration, and landfills. Globally, our solid waste revenue is evenly split between collection and treatment. Starting with collection in the first box. Collection and services represent around 50% of our solid waste revenue. It includes 3 separate activities: municipal collection, commercial and industrial collection, C&I, and industrial services. Municipal collection for 1.9 billion euros enable us to secure volumes for our incinerators. As margin and barriers to entry are low, we have become very selective. It is often an entry point in new markets or emerging countries. C&I collection is larger, with 2.9 billion euros of revenue, 25% of solid waste, and more profitable. It's secure feedstock for our treatment facilities. Coming to treatment, the 3 boxes on the right, treatment activities are the other half and are split between sorting and recycling, incineration, and landfilling, whose relative weight depends on the maturity of the country. Sorting and recycling is the largest and fastest growing segment due to the evolution of regulation. The 2.5 billion euro revenue is coming from our service fees, from our sorting and recycling of material, and the actual sales of recycled products. Incineration amount for 1.8 billion euro revenue, at landfill for 1.3 billion, both generating mainly in France and in the UK, are highly profitable. Now let me detail the 3 key features of our business model which characterize solid waste as a stronghold. First, our specific resilience. Second, our proven agility. And third, the power of combination with water and energy. Starting with the first one, our resilience. Our solid waste activities, even including 50% of non-municipal clients, are much more resilient than in the past, and probably more than the market thinks. Our solid waste benefits largely from unique characteristics of the Veolia business model, which contributes to its resilience. We are in the top 3 in each of our geographies. We are well protected against inflation. We benefit from a diversified geographical footprint and a balanced portfolio of clients. We enjoy more than 90% of control renewable. Our exposure to energy and commodity prices is well under control. Regarding energy, we have implemented a hedging policy by which we sell in advance over 3 years our electricity revenue in order to have visibility. And regarding recyclates, we have put in place back-to-back contracts. And we have long proven our agility, with continuous efficiency gain and ad hoc action plan when needed locally. You can also see on the slide a chart showing to what extent solid waste has been a stronghold. Indeed, solid waste has delivered over the past 15 years a continuous low to mid-single-digit growth, plus 4%, excluding Suez. In the last 15 years, we launched a profound transformation of our operation in order to be more resilient. We put in place more efficient and locally adapted organization. We streamline our structure. We de-risk our recycled activities. And we are much more selective. proactively supporting the evolution of our main markets, for instance, in the UK. And all these actions bore fruit. Second characteristic of solid waste operation, our agility and strong track record in terms of efficiency. Efficiency gains at Veolia are largely recurring and not discretionary cost-cutting programs, of which you could question the continuity. We have highlighted in the slide 3 key levels of continuous efficiency gain in solid waste. We continuously prune our portfolio. We are very selective in municipal collection. We decide on specific action plan when needed, such as in Germany, where we have extracted significant synergies after the acquisition of Hoffmann. And in France, we have also rolled out a plan with 4 focus points: recovery of non-profitable contracts, G&A optimization, HR agility with internal mobility, and purchasing optimization. Finally, the third characteristic and strengths of our solid waste come from combination which make us unique. Regarding solid waste, our most compelling value added come from the combination of waste and energy. We sell 9 TWh of renewable energy from waste, of which 6 TWh of electricity and 3 TWh of heat, which fuel district heating networks. If we consider our waste-to-energy incinerator plus RDF production, so the alternative fuel coming from non-recyclable waste, and biogas from landfills, total bioenergy produced from waste amount to more than 2.5 billion euros in 2024. Going forward, energy revenue from waste is bound to increase due to the large demand of municipalities for local and renewable energy. The potential for industrial clients, of which we typically replace gas and coal turbine with RDF. All in, the increasing energy revenue from waste, which is plug-in with no additional capex or limited, will contribute to enhance our margin. After solid waste activity, a strong goal which is resilient, agile, and benefit from the combination. Let's go now on our booster, hazardous waste. As Estelle explained earlier, hazardous waste is a growing market fueled by megatrends in which Veolia already enjoys leading position. Hazardous waste has long been a fast-growing activity for Veolia and delivers a revenue CAGR of 8% in the last 15 years. 2024 revenues amount to 4.3 billion euros. In hazardous waste, we are operating by geographical platforms. 55% of revenue in Europe, 30% in the US, 10% in Asia-Pacific, notably in Australia and China. And we are taking off the business in Middle East and LATAM. Our customer base is very diversified by sector, as you can see, with healthcare and chemical representing 40% of our clients. It is also benefiting from a very large number of clients, for instance, more than 10,000 small and medium-sized in France. EBITDA amount to 666 million euros in 2024, implying a 14% EBITDA margin, which will expand by 2027, as I will explain in a few moments. Likewise, as several facilities are going to be commissioned and gross capex to be less significant, ROCE will significantly increase in 2027 from 6% to 9% after tax. Veolia was a pioneer in hazardous waste in Europe in the 70s. It grew sharply in France and developed a network of facilities and then expanded in the US and in Asia, taking advantage of the regulation forcing industries to address their pollution. We fully and rightly anticipate the market trends and found solutions for our industrial clients. In Europe, we are number one, with 2.4 billion euro revenue in a market still suffering from scarcity of facilities. we enjoy more than 20% market share with 20 incineration plants. The EBITDA margin is the highest of the segments at 17% and will continue to grow by 2027 as our new asset will be commissioned, notably in Germany and in the UK. In the US, we are number 3, with 1.3 billion euro of revenue in a market also suffering from scarcity of facilities and which will continue to grow, fueled by the reshoring of industries, new volume coming from micropollutant treatment like PFAS. Like in Europe, we expect our EBITDA margin to grow thanks to the ramp-up of new facility. In the rest of the world, new assets will be commissioned in Saudi Arabia and in Taiwan. In China, we are recovering with a restructuring plan to compensate for slower economic growth after COVID and change of regulation. Recovery is underway with significant operational cost decrease and concrete margin improvement. Hazardous waste is a winning business model, fueling the growth of GreenUp. More precisely, Veolia is a market leader in a market with high barrier to entry of hazardous. Just to name a few of these barriers: complex regulatory requirements, difficulty to replicate our know-how, which also include unique assets and equipment, require high safety standards, deeply experienced people. This slide reminds you of our 3 pillars of value creation: top-line growth, performance, and capital allocation. Starting with growth, it is supported by volume expansion, pricing strategy and mix optimization, as well as new offer and innovations. Our objective is to continue to grow annually our top line mid to high single digit in line with GreenUp Booster trajectory. The second pillar of value creation is performance with cost efficiency. Continuous optimization of our asset utilization, which will lead to 10% average annual growth and margin expansion between 23 and 27. And the third pillar is capital allocation, where we focus on new capacity build and selective tuck-ins, always in line with our strict investment criteria, IRR above WACC plus 4, and ROCE above WACC after year 3. Finally, this leads to strong value creation with the ROCE expected to increase by 50% between 23 and 27 to 9% after tax. I will now detail specifically the first pillar, growth. So growth will come from 3 levels. First, volume expansion on top of high barrier to entry is fueled by complex regulatory requirements, health protection, nature protection and new pollutants, industrial reshoring and strategic material recovery. Second, pricing power and mix optimization. We continue to increase our price in 24, for instance, in the US by 8% and in Europe by 4%. Above all, our value added comes from our unique capacity to optimize our mix and select the highest value added waste to be treated. And third, new offer and new pollutant to treat such as PFAS. I would also like to highlight that the growth we have enjoyed in hazardous waste has always been disconnected from macro and has been razor fueled by environmental regulation, health protection, reshoring, and strategic independence. Moving to performance, number 4. Expansion of our margins will come from the combination of optimization of asset availability and improvement of utilization rates. The sharing of best practices in our different operations. For instance, we are using our deeply experienced personnel, what we call our flying team, from France to commission smoothly Tawil in Middle East and Gumstring in the US. Volume internalization and the improvement of the utilization rate of our treatment facilities with our collection contracts. For instance, in the US in Gumspring, we have been able to secure around 50% of our facility capacity with guaranteed take-or-pay agreements. Finally, capital allocation, which is key for hazardous waste. You can see on this slide the upcoming commissioning of new assets, as well as the recent tuck-in acquisition, which will fuel our growth by 2027. Regarding new assets, we will add 285,000 tons by 2027 and 430,000 tons once full ramp-up is achieved, contributing to the enhancement of our margin. Regarding M&A, I am very pleased, as announced by Estelle, that we have signed 3 deals in the US, and we have bought a Class 1 landfill in Japan and in Brazil. Overall, 5 deals representing 300 million euro enterprise value, with multiple around 10 before synergies. This transaction will participate in the margin expansion fully aligned with our strategy and well executed. So, in a nutshell, we have strong ambition for our hazardous waste business, thanks to growth, efficiency, and new assets. We expect top line to grow mid to high single digits, EBITDA to grow by 10% per year on average, resulting in margin expansion at least 200 BP, while ROCE should increase by plus 50% by 27 to 9% after tax. So hazardous waste is a winning business model, fueling the growth of GreenUp, and we have full visibility on its path to contribute to our 2027 target. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Danielle Mering, for all these precious elements. Let's move on to the round table. For a special focus on 4 different regions of the world, let's welcome on stage 4 Veolia executives. She's the CEO of the Hazardous Waste Europe, Catherine Ricou. He's President and CEO of Veolia Environmental Solutions and Services in North America, Bob Capadona. He works for Veolia in Near and Middle East as General Manager of Magma, Helder Daravano. And last but not least, he works for Veolia in Australia and New Zealand as National Remediation Services Manager, Matt Eade. Welcome on stage. Thank you all. So, Catherine Ricou, let's begin with you. Obviously, Catherine, you are going to tell us about the European market, and quite logically, it all began here in France. We're talking about a long history of several decades, aren't we?
Yes, no, exactly. It is really about several decades, 5 exactly. So, you know, Veolia decided to build in 1975 in France the first hazardous waste facility to accept this type of waste. And the goal at that time was really to protect the environment and to make sure we could protect the water resource to produce drinking water. So at that time, you know, the French subsidiary, the Compagnie Générale des Eaux, really started to launch a very strong collaboration with industrial customers, making sure we could find together waste and solution for them to treat their very specific waste in order to protect the water resource and reduce the impact on the environment. So that's exactly when we started, you know, the activity for Veolia in hazardous waste. So now, 50 years later, we are in 10, even 12 countries in Europe, and we are treating 5 million, you know, 5,000 million tons of waste in our facilities in Europe. And it's very interesting to see that, you know, the growth of Veolia hazardous waste in Europe has been really structured through organic growth, but also through very strategic acquisition, because the model is really, as it was said just before, to own assets, merchant plant. So we had to decide which were the very strategic countries where we needed to invest to make sure we can support growth And each country had a very, very strategic, strong growth opportunity. So you can see on the slide, Poland, you can see Spain, and these territories were really flagged in terms of growth opportunity. So now, again, 50 years later, 12 countries, and all this growth has been really structured also thanks to the very strong European regulatory framework. And it's not only about protecting the environment, it's also about this framework in Europe is also about protecting the health. And we've talked a lot about PFAS and a lot about, new, again, emerging pollutant. So this framework has been very strong. And now we see in Europe that we've got countries really mature in terms of regulatory development. And we still have some countries on the way to implement these regulatory frameworks. So we still have growth in Europe thanks to regulation. And we see today that it's moving very fast on regulation. Another lever for growth in Europe, of course, is the growth and the evolution of the industry. So the economical health of the industry is important. But what I think makes us really special in Europe is that we have, and we're providing solution to a very granular portfolio of customers. As you can see, only 15% of our portfolio is about large, very large customers. The rest of it is very granular. It could be, again, in the market for the microelectronic, pharmaceutical, but any kind really of industry. It can also be households. Not that they are bringing waste to our own facility, but to collection point. When you paint and you maintain your house, these type of waste are brought then to collection point. So you can see that the range of waste that we're treating, the market segment and the granulometry of the customer is really very broad. So now, not only we've got a granular portfolio of customer, but the resilience of the model is really based on the fact that we've got a very large network in Europe of more than 100 facilities, again, merchant plant owned, where we can invest, where we can develop. And when you can see this map, I think this map is very explicit on how the flows are traveling and how we do assess, with the expertise that we have, the type of flows and the needed treatment that we need to apply to make sure we can treat the pollution in the right asset. So part of the asset and the portfolio that we have, we've got four main portfolio. One is the high temperature incineration. We've talked quite a lot about that. In Europe, we do have 20 sites. It's a lot. It's helping us to really map in some strategic countries and to capture the growth. And we've been developing, it has been just announced, a patent called DropFast to make sure we can create the condition in, incineration, the condition to destroy the PFAS. And I just would like to take the opportunity to thank the French team that have been really behind the development of this patent, because it's a lot of work, it's very innovative, and I think it's really amazing to see that today this type of patent can be spread across the full territory of Veolia to make sure we can address this challenge of PFAS in incineration. So incineration is one. Liquid and material recovery. It's not really well known, but 60% of the waste that we treat are liquid. We usually think about solid, but hazardous waste is a mix of a lot of material, a lot of typology of waste, and 60% is about liquid. So in this facility, we can take the waste, the liquid waste of the industrial customers and make sure we can treat them. Another category of asset is the recycling. We talked already about the Critical Raw Material Act for strategic metals. So that's one recycling opportunity. We talked already about solvent. So in recycling, we've got specific flows, and each time a waste is identified, we try to assess really if that waste can be treated in one of these facilities. And the last one is the mineral treatment, some waste of mineral, it was presented. The mineral treatment, the landfill, the soil remediation. We have a lot of projects with contaminated soil with PFAS, and also groundwater, underground water contaminated water with pollution. So these 4 categories of assets are really equally spread in Europe. And in terms of expertise, what's very specific to hazardous waste is to treat these waste in these assets. We need to have very skilled set people to sample, qualify, understand the waste. And we've got more than 20% of the employees that are chemists. A lot of them are in the labs, to make sure we can assess these waste, and then to define where to treat them the best way, creating, the most value, and how to combine the waste to make sure we can treat them very safely in our facilities. So as you can see, the resilience of the model, the strength of the model in Europe to continue to support growth is really about expertise for sure and innovation, about a network really equally spread, about diversity of assets, and about a very granular portfolio of customers.
Thank you, Catherine, for these first very interesting elements. What's particularly interesting about Veolia's activity on European soil is that despite this longevity, the market remains very dynamic and full of new opportunities. So what do you have in mind for the next chapters ahead?
The next chapter is about growth, of course. And you've seen that the growth of the activity has been really faster than the GDP. And to sustain this growth, I think I would like to come back on the levers for the value creation model that was presented just before. I think the first one is really to leverage even more the resilience of our market footprint in Europe by acceleration of the combination. If you look at it, and I think that's really also what's fascinating in that market, is the hazardous waste activity is really at the crossroad of the 3 strongholds of the group. Of course, we treat waste, pollution, and pollutants in our facilities, but we also treat liquid. So we depollute liquid, we recycle water, we reuse water for our own needs, but also for customer needs that are requiring reuse water. So this is a combination, and we do have in our facilities a lot of technology from the group, membranes, for example, with reverse osmosis. So this is a very strong element of combination. Another element of combination is energy. We do produce a lot of energy, we transform energy, and we do our best to reduce the energy consumption that we are using in a facility. So this is another key element for combination. So hazardous waste is really at the crossroad of all this acceleration. So that's one lever. Another lever is what I would call the continuous improvement of the operational efficiency. Improving performance on these assets that we own is always something that we're looking at. It's about, again, risk management. It's about safety. It's about asset management and maintenance, because we need to invest the right way at the right moment on these assets. And every % that we can gain on the availability on an asset is also contributing to a sustainable growth. So this is very important for us. It's a key lever in Europe. And, coming back on expertise is key in the hazardous waste. It's a key barrier, but it's also a key asset for growth, because our customers really identified the value of this expertise. So now, not only to grow, we're really managing this asset, but they're asking us to come into the fence of their own sites to help them to qualify, to reduce even, but also to prepare the waste to be treated the right way and the proper way. And we have a lot of discussion on what type of category of assets we need to assess for you in terms of waste treatment. So this is key for growth. We already talked about new capacity in Germany, so we are working on that project. It will contribute in 2027 to our growth. So this is, again, a key element to enhance, increase this network in Europe, and of course the organic growth. We have a lot of offers through innovation, through also new customer needs, emerging waste, I mean, new waste, the gigafactory industry that, we can talk about that later, but it's really adding new waste that we need to qualify and identify the best way to treat them. So all these elements are key for us to sustain the growth. And maybe the last element, not the least, is innovation. Innovation has been, over the 5 decades, really a key element for the Veolia hazardous waste in Europe to grow. Again, we've got 75 patents that are really used in all the segments that I've been talking about. So the next chapter will still embrace innovation, and the key element will be decarbonation. The next stage for us is to continue what we're doing in the hazardous waste, decarbonizing the hazardous waste market. So that will sustain the growth for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Catherine Ricou. From Europe, let's go to the USA with you, Bob Cappadona. First thing first, Bob, can you tell us how the group is positioned in this part of the world?
Thank you very much. It's nice to see that the hazardous waste business has so many friends. I can feel the warmth of your friendship right now, so appreciate everybody being here. The business here in the US, it is a perfect example, maybe our first example of copy and adapt, where the business started in the 70s and 80s, very much as a service-based business. A lot of the front-end work on managing material, ultimately to hazardous waste treatment facilities, but 80% of the material that we owned or that we managed did not go to Veolia-owned or managed facilities. It went to third-party facilities. So, but the focus was on customer service, the best NPS score, and really managing that customer relationship. Resulted in excellent growth. We've seen, as you can see in the chart, where we've gone from $500 million to $1 billion and managed 1 million tons of waste. Our ultimate goal, 2 million tons of waste, $2 billion in revenue across the group. We've done that through organic growth. We've also done that through some tuck-in acquisitions, which have been mentioned today, one of which closed yesterday. So we're very, very happy to see those tuck-in acquisitions along with the group. Go to the next slide. This is similar to Catherine, that the footprint of our assets across the country. We service every state in the country. One of the challenges certainly is, in some cases, it takes 2.5 days to get across the country, so transportation becomes an integral part of our business, and managing the most efficient way of getting material across the country is very important to us. In terms of incinerators, we have 3 incineration sites, 6 hazardous waste incinerators, and in one more example of that global sharing, similar to DropFast, we've been working on PFAS testing at our facility in Port Arthur, Texas, and we've been able to achieve 99.9999 treatment destruction levels of PFAS through the facility, ultimately creating the solution from a liability perspective for our customers now and into the future. As I mentioned earlier, the transport platforms, that's where we're taking materials in from smaller service vehicles, transferring them onto larger vehicles, where this way every vehicle that we send across the country, nose to tail, floor to ceiling, ultimate goal is for it to be fully utilized and to be the most efficient possible. Again, critically important in terms of being competitive with our local customer. Liquid hazardous waste recovery, a big part of that business is solvent reclamation, but also fuel blending, where we are taking in waste solvents and preparing them so that we can manufacture essentially a fuel that can then be used in other kilns around the country. Oftentimes, these are very clean materials that are coming from the high-tech industry or the pharmaceutical industry, just can't be reused again in that industry, so we prepare them for alternative use. In some cases, we will recycle them, sell them into another industry. In some cases, we'll identify industries where we can sell right back into the same industry. In our electronics recycling business, this is traditional electronics recycling, everything from your cell phone to your PC, and most recently to batteries and the management of lithium batteries. And in the case in the US, this is our white glove logistics program. White glove and batteries probably don't necessarily align perfectly for you, maybe fine restaurant white glove, but white glove here is focused on safety. The number one issue with the lithium batteries, of course, is their potential for reactivity, catch fire, and then the inability to control the fire. Our white glove logistics ensures that we're managing batteries from the point of generation to the ultimate treatment asset, which right now, agnostic to the technology that we utilize, so that depending upon the chemistry, we can go to different chemistries depending on the batteries that we manage. The group in the US is currently, I think with some pride and some not so pride, managing 2 of the largest battery fires in the United States, one which is over a year old, but it reignited multiple times. We're managing the batteries from that very safely and managing those either to recycling or an on-site treatment activity.
Well, Bob, what you describe is a great dynamic for the group in the US. And guess what? I got a perfect example to illustrate this dynamic. A few days ago, Veolia has opened a new site in Delaware. We're talking about the inauguration of a brand new PFAS treatment plant, the largest of this kind for the group, and definitely one of the largest in North America. Let's see how it looks like.
I'm super happy to be unveiling this state-of-the-art plant here in Delaware, Stanton. It's the largest of its kind in Veolia in the US, treating PFAS for drinking water purposes.
The way we treat and the way we distribute water is changing dramatically. Something like 40 US states over the next decade are going to face some type of water scarcity issue.
It's an amazing day because we're opening the largest PFAS treatment facility in the northeast of the United States. Here in Delaware, we're going to treat PFAS out of the drinking water for 100,000 people. That's 1 in 10 residents of the whole state of Delaware.
Communities want to have peace of mind that what is coming out of their taps is safe, reliable, and affordable.
This plant embodies Veolia's commitment to public health, infrastructure investment in our communities, as well as environmental stewardship.
The PFAS treatment that we are inaugurating today is the use of granular activated carbon vessels, where PFAS is adsorbed from the water onto the carbon media. Veolia is intent to stay at the forefront of the best cost-effective medias for treatment.
I'm super proud, and it's only the beginning. We are anticipating, innovating, designing solutions, and deploying them through the country to ensure health and security at the top for Americans.
Today's milestone is about trust. Trust that Delawareans can have in the safety of the water, and trust in proactive policy that's committed to your public health. And thanks to this extraordinary facility, that trust is stronger today than ever before, and stronger for Delawareans than anywhere else in America.
So, yes? You want to say something?
I know for the technical people, the facility is the most amazing part of that. To me, the piece is trust, trust, trust. The client 100% trusting in the technology of Veolia to solve a problem.
Yeah, magical word. So, Bob, what's next for Veolia in North America in the waste sector?
What's next is as we mentioned earlier, focus on continual growth, both organic and through some acquisitions. Focus on our local service model. We put our people embedded locally with our customers, and in some cases embedded in our customer locations. So at over 250 different locations across the United States, our people are reporting full-time to a customer location. Typically, the line I say with that is, we focus on what we do best, so you can focus on what you do best. And we see more and more in growth and technology innovation type companies where that's the trust that they have in Veolia, is to build that infrastructure to support what they would like to do best. We're managing our portfolio of business in, and I'm looking at everybody's face as I say this, a bit of a volatile time, and there's always an interesting story in the news. Manage our business accordingly to make sure that the opportunities that we view in the market, or where we put our resources, where we put our assets, align with the industry sectors that align well with Veolia. Key things, semiconductors, life sciences have been very good markets for us in terms of, as I mentioned, being local and being embedded in customer facilities, PFAS being ready for what we see today and what we will see into the future, and exploring emerging markets. And on the train ride here, I looked out the window and I saw windmill blades. Windmill blades in our market is a business opportunity. We've got a windmill blade recycling business embedded in the ESS business. Who even thought that was a problem? But that's an opportunity for us where we now recycle those windmill blades, take the materials from those windmill blades, put them right back into the cement industry. It's an opportunity, as Emmanuel described earlier, of us for additional volume in through the Veolia network, pricing appropriately to environmental solutions, and utilizing the assets that we have across our network. Last thing is we mentioned the opening of the Gum Springs incinerator in Gum Springs, Arkansas. One of the neatest things about that, within the last week, we won an award for being the best corporate citizen, voted by the public. So my comment about having friends of the hazardous waste business and it making me warm, well, that's a little bit making me warm here, but it also makes me warm at home to know that our business is valued that highly by the local community and that we're a good citizen in the community that we operate.
It's really impressive, Bob. Thank you very much. While Europe and North America are already major markets for Veolia, it's a whole different story for the Middle East and Australia. Let's start with you, Helder de Ravano. Can you describe to us the specificities of the Middle Eastern market and how different it is from those in Europe and the US?
Yes, thank you. Indeed, from zero to a major player in the hazardous waste market in less than a decade is quite remarkable, and puts Veolia and the hazardous waste joining two already strong activities, the water and the energy sector. From a market perspective, the Middle East is a fast-growing and very dynamic market, approximately 25% of the size of Europe, but growing as twice as faster. I would say that is also a mature market in terms of oil and gas and big industries, but young and still developing in terms of hazardous waste. So altogether, this makes it very challenging for us, but also very attractive. And I think it puts Veolia in the unique position and the only company able to keep up with this fast pace and this market transformation. From a regulatory point of view, is well supported by robust and long-term government plans with very well-defined roadmaps and green agendas when we're talking about environmental aspects. So these things together allow us to replicate models and strategies from our wide portfolio in Veolia and provide tailor-made solutions to the market, while supporting our customers in this ecological and energetic transformation. So to materialize these concepts, these strategies, two key facilities recently started. So Magma as a brownfield in the UAE and Tahwil as a green field in Saudi Arabia are reinforcing Veolia's geographical network in the hazardous waste. So with a little bit more focus in Magma, is a project that started 7 years ago, initially conceived as an O&M, that then became an acquisition in 2023, after 5 years of detailed business model design through innovative partnership, leading to a merchant plant that nowadays is open to the entire UAE. So in 2 years since we took over, Several circularity aspects have been implemented on site, right? Like water reuse, alternative fuel as a source of energy, even substitution of some raw materials by some other waste streams in certain processes, because they are all interlinked in this specific facility. So this is thanks to probably our third generation of copy and paste. Bob mentioned the second, we're probably the third, copying and adapting from our brothers and sisters in Europe and the US. So while we're growing faster and the market is demanding that level, we're also investing already. We have several projects where by innovating, adapting to the customer needs with several improvements, we're aiming to multiply by 2.5 approximately our capacity over the next 2 years in the Magma site. So this is strategically leading us to an environmental partner, to become an environmental partner to our customers, and is making Magma, in this particular case, a one-stop shop facility in the Middle East. So I would say that as a key message from my point of view, this journey has been possible over the last years, mainly through one fundamental instrument, which is the Veolia network. Benefiting from the Veolia network, as mentioned by Catherine, by Bob, for us is key on this copy and adapt strategy. And is, I would say, the key of the success so far in the Middle East. So moving to Tahwil. Tahwil, we call it Magma's younger but bigger brother. That has been permitting over the last, during 2 years, construction in approximately 4 years, and is now ramping up quickly, leading to 120,000 tons of hazardous waste on a waste-to-energy incineration plant. It's a state-of-art facility built by Veolia and currently ramping up quickly, and soon will be providing steam in the form of energy to the industrial park where it's based. And looking ahead a little bit further, we'll capture 25% of the hazardous waste market in Saudi Arabia. So, in a nutshell, if I have to summarize the ingredients of our hazardous waste expansion strategy in the Middle East, I would say that when you combine the global network and local network from Veolia, adding this know-how, expertise, maturity, with the fact that we own the assets that allow us to invest and adapt our facilities to the market, with business partnership with strong clients, big clients on the long term, and with those green agendas well defined, which is another key pillar in this process, that gives us a great recipe in sustainable and long-term growth, consolidating firmly and strongly our position in the region.
Another master chef recipe. Thank you very much, Helder. So now let's fly over the Pacific and go to Australia. Mathilde, your turn. We have just heard about this new market in the Middle East. What can you tell us about Australia?
So Australia is actually a well-established market. We've been operating in Australia for over 30 years in hazardous waste, longer in solid waste. And it's all been about adapting to the local market needs. So initially, our hazardous waste facilities located in the traditional manufacturing areas, so along the East Coast. But in recent years, as the resources and mining industry has developed, opening new facilities in Northern Territory and along the West Coast. And the good news is that the hazardous waste market in Australia continues to grow. So the latest federal government report show that it's still a growing industry, and we are seeing that reflected in our financial results. We've had 7.5% growth since the merger in 2021, 7.5% year-on-year growth. So what are the key drivers for the hazardous waste market in Australia? So it's increased regulation and it's increased community awareness. So companies are wanting a social licence to operate now. So there's been a move away from landfilling and moving towards treatment of hazardous waste. The example I like to give here is our Taylors Road facility in Melbourne, which is a hazardous waste landfill. And now on top of that landfill, we actually have a thermal treatment facility. So the contaminated soil and hazardous waste that was previously going into the landfill is now treated and turned into a beneficial product. So how has Veolia adapted the business over time? So it's all about geographical spread. So a bit like the US, we're a large country, so it's having treatment assets, near where the waste is generated, or it's about having collection facilities or transfer stations, as we call them, everywhere else that can then take the waste to those treatment assets. It's about targeted M&A, so looking at facilities where we currently don't have treatment. So an example of this was the Bransters acquisition in Sydney in late 2024. So we believe we're actually number one for collection of hazardous waste in Australia and number two for treatment. So by taking it to our own facilities, then we're able to internalise that margin and increase profitability. It's also about expanding services on our own sites, so doing more on our own sites, so installing PFAS water treatment at our hazardous waste treatment facilities. It's about doing medical waste on our treatment facilities, as we recently have installed in Darwin, so we're now collecting medical waste at the Darwin treatment facility. The third growth lever, how we're adapting the business in Australia, is about doing more for our customers. So this is the combination that Estelle talked about before. So adding new services, doing more things for our existing customers. So the example that I like to give here is in the Pilbara region in Western Australia. So this is the biggest iron ore producing region in the world, and Veolia's had an industrial services contract there for many years. So in 2012, we started doing solid waste collection services with a single truck. We formed a joint venture with a local Indigenous corporation to give them more opportunities. We then won a solid waste contract with our existing industrial services customer, and over time we've now grown that service to now we do hazardous waste treatment for that customer. We've won other contracts in the area for Woodside, among other people, and Rio Tinto, and we now believe that we have 70% market share in that region. So, the key to Veolia in Australia is adapting to local market conditions, doing more things on our existing Veolia sites, and then doing more things for our existing customers.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Matt. Thanks to all of you for your crystal clear explanations. Yes, you're right. They deserve it. So it's time to conclude, and of course, the conclusion belongs to Estelle Brachlianoff. The floor is yours.
You've understood the challenges ahead are immense. Industries, they face tightening regulation and release increasing complex pollutants. Communities, they demand protection for their health and the environment. Regions, they need to maintain their attractiveness while supporting industrial development and secure the supply of critical minerals. While scarce natural resources are even more needed to support our wealth, every single of ours, and reaching planet boundaries at the same time. So how do we combine those two? This is where Veolia, through GreenUp, takes center stage as architects of environmental security. Every solution we develop, every facility we operate, everything we do in a way serves just one purpose: protecting population, protecting industrial operations, protecting strategic autonomy of each of the countries we live in. So from developing a circular economy to removing pollutants, that's exactly what we do in our waste activity. And our hazardous waste activity in particular perfectly exemplifies this mission. And as we've seen, no one matches our capability, from our cutting-edge technology through to our unrivaled portfolio of customers or assets. So together with our 24 results and our more recent ones, today's announcements prove that we are on the right path to deliver GreenUp. So let me remind you those announcements. So first, our target of 50% growth of hazardous waste revenue by 2030, including €1 billion combined revenue in PFAS. Second, our 5 strategic check-ins, as well as 285 tons of capacity by 2027, reaching even 430,000 tons at full ramp-up. Third, the launch of our breakthrough drop-fast technology, once again pushing the boundaries of what's possible in pollution treatment. Our strategy and priorities are clear. Our capabilities are proven. Our path is set. And we are starting and delivering. This is exactly GreenUp in action. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we're ready for the questions, I guess.
I think it's time to open the Q&A session. Thank you so much. Wow. Many hands already lift up. So, okay, can you? Yeah, you got the mic. Your turn.
Hello, I'm Josep from El País newspaper in Spain. I wanted to ask, what are the plans for Spain in the growth on the hazardous waste projects? If there are investments in plan, now that you have this key investor criteria that may accompany you. Thank you.
So I may take this one, but maybe you will want to complement Catherine on that one, because Catherine is in charge of the hazardous waste in Europe. So of course we're in France today, but she runs as well our facilities in Spain. I'm trying to find back the page of the map where you see an important dot on the map, Jean-Pierre 37, which is in Spain, basically near Barcelona, although it's not exactly in Barcelona, a bit nearby, where the industrial park is located. We have a very nice high-temperature incinerator in Munich, which we've developed over the last few years. I think we have the date, somewhere else. And we go on investing, in this activity in Spain, like in the rest of Europe. But it's fair to say that Catherine manages it as a network. As we've seen, hazardous waste travels. So when you have sufficient needs in a specific country, you invest in specific assets through the specific waste flow. And when it's too small a market, you tend to ship it to a neighboring country. So in a way, the more the industry in Spain will grow, the more you will have dots on this map. And we're very happy that our investors, including Caixa, support this growth because it's good return as well as good for your health and that on the environment. It's good return.
Okay, next question. Who has the mic? Okay.
Hi, Wanda Serwinowska, UBS. 2 questions from me. The first one is on the CapEx plan, because I haven't seen how much Veolia is going to invest by 2027, 2028. I think it's like 200 million was last year. But after the presentation, it seems it's a super growing market. So what keeps you preventing from investing more, given your balance sheet headroom, I would ask? And the second question is to Emmanuel on the EBITDA margin. If I'm not mistaken, you mentioned a target to expand EBITDA margin by more than 200 bips. If you could give us the building blocks more or less, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
I'm not surprised, but you listened carefully to what Emmanuel said. So in terms of the first part, and you will take the second part, Emmanuel, in terms of the first part, in a way, if I dezoom a little bit, what are our priority of investment in the GreenUp plan? We've made it very clear. Priorities is to the boosters, which doesn't mean that we don't invest in the other activities, but we prioritize them. So, there is a queue in investment. Of course, the first thing is you have to be at the bar. WACC plus 4% are our minimal and good ROCE and so on and so forth. But we have still too many projects which would be at that bar. So we prioritize the booster. That's super clear. So you have here lucky guys and ladies because they skip the queue compared to their colleagues, basically, in terms of investment, both in M&A and in CapEx. So far, we think, what we've put on this plan is enough to support the 5 to 10% growth, and we don't need to invest in other new red dots on the map, apart from the 5 we've just discussed. So the intention is progressively, last year was 200 million investment, and progressively it will go down because we'll open this plant and we don't have many other dots on the map so far. Hence, the ROCE, in a way, mechanically increases. Today, in a way, we have them in our funds employed, and we have no revenue or margin associated with those 5 dots on the map. So in 25, 6, 7, you will see a ramp-up of the performance associated with this reducing investment. If there was, a change in the market, and we think, we might have a 6 in the map, we'll see. But so far, we're good with that. And honestly, it is enough to support the growth, which is embedded in GreenUp and the 27 targets. Maybe on the second part, Emmanuel.
On EBITDA margin, thank you for the question, Wanda. So you are absolutely right. We have strong ambition in terms of margin expansion for our hazardous waste business. Our target is to expand it by 200 BP to 300 BP. It will come from 40% from new capacity, so the tuck-ins and the opening of new facilities, 30% performance and efficiency, and 30% volumes growth. So a large part of it is fully secure. The capacity are willed, they will start. The tuck-in have been closed with very attractive multiples, and we will also benefit from the volume expansion, our pricing strategy, which has been very successful in the last 3 years, as well as new offer and new volumes as PFAS. What you have to have in mind is that also it will have a strong push also, as you were mentioning, CapEx on our ROCE, because we'll benefit from the EBITDA for our new facilities, having done the investment, finalizing that, but the larger part is in the past.
And just want to elaborate, because we say margin expansion. We gave you figures, and Bob and Catherine are too shy to have mentioned them, but it's a good track record. On page 38, you have just 10% CAGR of EBITDA in the last 5 years in Catherine's business, and on so 10% per year. So we've done a plus 60% basically, from 2018 up to now. And in page 42, Bob, you have a plus 12% CAGR. So times 6, it's 80% or something EBITDA, which this gentleman has been able to deliver. Those two without having opened new capacities yet. So only using the 1 up to 4 levers, which Emmanuel shown, and not yet the 5 and 6, if you want to, in a nutshell. That's why we are confident about delivering GreenUp.
Well, actually, let's continue a little moment with Bob, because there is a question for Bob coming from the chat. Can you talk about the pricing outlook in the US market? Do you expect pricing to continue at high single digits? Was 8% in 2024. Any concerns about the commercial incineration capacity coming online? That is a question.
Good question. Certainly the dynamics of our market in the last 5 years, you had full utilization of the capacity across the network, and then about 22, you started really seeing the impact of onshoring of manufacturing, light manufacturing, tremendous growth in containerized waste. So not necessarily bulk waste, but containerized waste. And there wasn't significant capacity or available capacity in the industry to support the containerized waste. That containerized waste comes at a higher price per unit because of the managing and handling of the containerized waste. That has played a part in our ability to manage pricing to our benefit in support of margin growth within the business. Our network is set up to handle that based on investments that we've made in the infrastructure of the business. I mentioned the platforms. There's also an IT infrastructure that supports that as well, that enables us to manage containers into our network very, very efficiently, and that's given us good margin opportunity.
So no worries on the price going down when competitors open new capacity, Bob, is what I understand.
One of the things I did not mention when I spoke of Gum Springs, the Gum Springs incinerator has been identified by the United States EPA as a recycling facility. It is the only hazardous waste incinerator in the country that is identified as a recycling facility. So we started by pre-selling part of the capacity to the unit, and that's a significant competitive advantage, is having that HO50 code, which is an EPA designation unique to the facility, which will enable us to secure the volumes and provide the value to our clients that I think supports the pricing that we have within the market, and we've demonstrated that in the 5 years.
And the beginning of the year was very promising with what, 8.5% of revenue growth in the first quarter. You're always disappointed because we have a challenge. This gentleman and myself have said, when are you going to hit the 1 billion mark in dollars? We negotiated if it was in dollars or in euros, you know, for a while.
The target is moving.
Now you've announced today that it's going to be a 2 billion, and you're on the way, Bob. I'm very confident on that one.
We are on our way.
As well as good margin, as I said earlier on.
8.5 top line growth, 15% bottom line growth year to date.
Thank you. Let's go back to the audience. You've got the mic. Yes.
I have 3 questions. One regarding competition, the second one the question of detail, and the last one is also a question of business, I would say. Concerning competition, your position in the US is clearly hazardous waste, not really solid waste, it's shown on your maps. And some competitors in the US, big one like Waste Management, are increasing their market share in the hazardous waste. They have just bought recently Stericycle, which is a US company dedicated to hospital hazardous waste. In this specific segment, or more broadly, are you seeing some threat in terms of competition? And what is exactly your market share in this specific segment of the medical waste, hazardous waste? Do you have this ranking? The second question is concerning just a detail. In the solid waste business, you mentioned 1% of the revenue which are efficiencies. Is this figure is a growth or net concerning the famous 350 gross figure is linked to the just to be sure? And last, concerning the flows of cross-border waste, I'm a little bit surprised about the volumes you were underlying in your comments. Could you just have an idea about what is the percentage of waste which is traveling, means imports plus cross-border in Europe, for example, because US is a one country, versus the one you are managing on the, let's say, national or local basis? Many thanks.
So I will start on the first one. You will go for the second, and we'll go on the third as well. Are we fearing the competition altogether? And you have a specific question on the US. The answer is no. We are really leading, not only in size, but in patents and everything we just explained, and footprint and portfolio of assets on every single step of the way. Can we keep resting on our laurels? You never can be when you run a business, so it's not the style of the house, really. So we're always trying to innovate and to find new things. But are we specifically worried about the competition? No, really. Not specifically in the US, neither in Europe, really. The gap is quite wide and is more widening than going the opposite way around. But we're always very careful to keep it that way, really. In terms of the US market, you're right, you have a very different subsegment. The medical waste is an industry we're not that present in the US compared to, say, the type of waste. In a way, the highly technical one we'd rather. So Bob hasn't mentioned the type of customer we're talking about, but we're talking about large microeconomic companies. We're talking about the whole biotech industry behind MIT in Boston, these type of guys. And we, on purpose, are very, high-end, if I may. So we could do a bit of medical waste. I have no idea, what size, but it's not significant. So other competitors, we have competitors in the US, but on these high-end things, so we're picking value versus volume, if you want. We are, I think, very good at it. I've tested with customers myself. They're sticking. The Net Promoter Score is great, and really. Going on with the journey. But specifically medical waste, Bob, how big is it? I have no idea in our business in the US because it's not significant enough, so I know the answer to that one.
Yeah, we do have, and in fact, one of the recent acquisitions is a medical waste facility, but it's part of our Veolia Resource Solutions group, which has been one of the fastest growing components of our environmental business in the US. That is a total waste management offering primarily to pharmaceutical, biotech, high-tech industry where we can manage radioactive waste, we can manage hazardous waste, we can manage medical waste. We can also manage solid waste, but these are primarily from generators that are looking for us to handle their hazardous waste, and a small component of it is medical waste. We do not look to compete with Stericycle, now Waste Management, in terms of medical waste. I believe we have a technical and customer service lead relative to Republic and Waste Management in the customer segments that are beneficial to our business. So yes, we watch what they do and look to continuously improve every single day to make sure that we maintain that technical and customer service lead. But I certainly don't fear our competitor.
The second question, solid waste, 1% efficiency, gross or net?
It's
Emmanuel?
gross. So Philippe, the answer is gross. You know that efficiency, it's part of our DNA. We have an amazing track record in terms of efficiency extraction. It's the same on synergy. And what is important for us to make you understand is that a large part of it is fully recurring, as you have seen in the past years. And maybe one last sentence about it. We had very good retention rate last year and in Q1. And also our track record in terms of synergy extraction as efficiency is quite strong, which is important for the tuck-in that we are doing in the US.
And as far as the flows as concerned, so the third part of your question, you have a US and EU different views on that one because the size is not exactly the same geographically wise. The map shows that basically hazardous waste travel 1,000 miles, 2,000 miles without big difficulty. You know, there is a big thing which prevents that from ending up in, developing countries where it wouldn't be treated the same way, which is called the Basel Convention, which is preventing from exporting your hazardous waste and your nasty stuff to other places where they could cope with it, but, you know, not in the appropriate way, so which is protecting, you know, but you have to have dedicated facilities, and I explained with the Spanish example, you don't have necessarily the need on a specific location, so 1,000, 2,000 is quite classical. As we see in the US, you know, it travels from the West Coast down to Texas very frequently, which is quite a long way away. In terms of markets as well, in a way, the best answer in Europe would be that when we had a discussion with the EU antitrust, they defined it as a European market as opposed to a country by country, which is not for every single component of it, but for the vast majority of it, which is a way to testify that it's not only you know, on the borders, it actually does cross borders.
So let's take another question from the chat. It comes from Alexis Haim de Balzac, Thematics Asset Management. Hello to the whole Veolia team, and thank you for this great presentation. In hazardous waste, you mentioned using several technologies to treat waste. Is there a difference in margin across the different technologies?
So different technology from physical to incineration to whatever, no, it's more that you cannot deal with one because it's depending on the type of component you deal with. Different from collection to treatment, yes, of course, like any of this business. You know, you have less margin in collection and more margin in the treatment, whatever the type of treatment is. But the collection, as Emmanuel explained, you know, feeds the tons into the treatment system. So in a way, internalization is key, not to be dependent on others. But when you're the master chef, you can sign a take or pay, or actually put or pay in a way, agreement with people who have the collection network but don't have the treatment, and they need our capacity, which is always a good view. So you, in a way, you can see on the door here some trucks which are a lot of Veolia trucks, but some of them are not Veolia trucks, because those guys, they don't have anything which looks like that, and they just need to go and be here, which is an interesting, of course, situation to be in.
So in my earpiece, I just have the information that we are running out of time, so I'm taking only one last question here in the room. So who has the mic already? You got it. You're the lucky one.
Thank you. So my question was on your target on the return on capital employed, wanting to improve it on hazardous waste from 6%, well, plus 50% basically. I think you suggested earlier that part of that improvement comes from the fact that at the moment you have non-performing CapEx as you are building new facilities. I was wondering if you could quantify that non-performing CapEx and what type of return you're expecting on this specific CapEx that has already been spent. Thank you.
So Emmanuel will answer, but I wouldn't call them non-performing CapEx. You know, we are running, you know, and improving the EBITDA with the existing and, you know, building the future growth and the result of 27. That's more the way I would put it. But to your question, Emmanuel?
Yes, with pleasure. So from the 500 million capex we have in hazardous waste, we have around 200 million, slightly more, which are dedicated to these new facilities that we are opening. So you're absolutely right. In the years to come, we'll have automatically an increase of our ROCE, coming from an almost stable capital employed. We expect it to grow around 3 to 3.5%, when the EBIT will increase by 15%, fueled by our revenue, mid to high single-digit growth, and the additional efficiencies, which is allowing our EBITDA to increase, plus 10% per year, and our EBIT to increase.
So your figures are per year? Your figures are per year. So a few percent in funds employed, not much per year. More 10% at EBITDA, 15 at EBIT.
Yeah.
And when you barely grow the funds employed, in a way, that's why we said mechanically, it's not mechanic, it's by design, but you know, grow the ROCE by 50% to 9%.
Absolutely.
So it was our last question. I know that many of you must feel frustrated, but you are here for the whole day. And during lunch, it can be the ideal moment to ask your question to the Veolia's team. And for those online, on the slide deck, you've got different contacts, and you can feel free to send your questions to them. So this event is already coming to an end. Thank you very much, Estelle Brachlianoff. Thanks to all our speakers. Thanks to all of you for your participation and to all of you online. The replay will be available shortly. And let's end this event on a powerful image with an inspiring film that brings to life Veolia's vision and ecology that protects.
We are at a crossroads. In a world full of paradoxes, between climate denial and environmental extremism, Veolia offers a third way. An ecology that transforms, decarbonizes, depollutes, regenerates, and protects. The time has come to accelerate. Accelerate the deployment of tangible, affordable and replicable solutions to decarbonize, but also to depollute and regenerate natural resources for cities and for citizens, as well as for industry, all across the world. To reconcile human progress and planetary boundaries. Accelerating thanks to local decarbonizing energy, to technologies that preserve water and natural resources, to the treatment of new pollutants and hazardous waste. An abundance of tantalizing solutions and untapped local resources that Veolia, without equal, brings to light. Accelerate by building on our strong, innovative capacities and on the commitment of our 218,000 employees to ecological transformation, with the ambition of becoming a global champion of decarbonization, a global champion of depollution, a global champion of resource regeneration. Veolia is accelerating in order to build a sustainable and desirable future. Veolia is accelerating to green up the ways we produce and consume. Veolia is greening up the world and will for a long time to come.